Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Automotive. We have got our second guest that was on the show with us in the second episode, Peter Viljoen, back tonight, because in that episode, you guys asked us to speak about fleet and corporate sales. So that's exactly what we've decided to do. For those of you that haven't been with us before, Peter Viljoen is very well known in the motor industry with senior positions in the automotive industry, including National Sales Manager at Audi South Africa, Product Manager at Mercedes South Africa, and also many other roles within dealerships, including Dealer Principal. He's now the Managing Director of SydSen Group. Peter, welcome to Let's Talk Automotive.
Thanks, Fanie, and welcome to all the viewers. Great to be back.
Lucky man. So how's your 2 weeks been since we've last spoken?
It's been hectic, lots of work, but no sales, which I suppose is pretty usual for the conditions that we're under. But it's been quite rewarding to develop some of the relationships that we have, and I certainly think an investment that's been well worth it.
Sure. Listen, Pete, so tonight we're going to speak about fleet business and corporate vehicle sales, something that I've had some experience with. I actually started in the fleet sales department, and I think you obviously have the wealth of experience in the fleet management and fleet sales and all that sort of stuff. So I think let's jump into it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, funny. I think fleet sales and corporate sales is an incredibly important topic. I think it's something that as dealerships we perhaps a little bit guilty of not applying ourselves correctly and investing in the correct resources behind fleet sales, which is a pity because ultimately fleet sales is a fantastic way for a dealership to develop consistent business throughout the dealership. And not only on a sales front, but also from an after-sales point of view as well. Because don't forget, those fleet customers can come back and purchase parts and service their vehicles. So I think it's well worth a while for the viewers to have a look at what we've got to suggest to them this evening. Because I think they may be surprised at just how technical the position of fleet sales is.
Okay, so let's jump into it. We've got a very nice process that you've brought up onto the screen for us. So let's jump in. If we have a fleet department, or regardless if we have a fleet department or we don't have a fleet department, we want to start something. What process do you think and propose we use it to start this thing going?
Okay, Fanie, I think the first thing that the dealership should do is develop a fleet policy. A lot of fleet sales executives will go see customers and they're not too sure of what sort of pricing they can give that customer, which puts them on the spot. But if you've developed a robust fleet policy, it does two things for you. The first is it develops transparency for your fleet so that they can understand that because they are a certain size, that they will then be able to get certain discounts and other value-added products. So develop the fleet policy. It's quite a robust process that you can apply. And again, anybody that wants to, outside of this particular broadcast, contact me. I can help them develop this fleet policy. But typical things that you're going to look at is the size of the current fleet that your customer potentially has, what their purchasing cycle is, the total number of units that they purchase annually. Very importantly, what percentage of your vehicles do they have in their fleet? And then the quantity of units that they typically purchase per order. Once you've got that information from your customer, you're able to then give them a very clear understanding of where they will fall in terms of pricing. Okay. So very important to have the fleet policy, yeah.
All right, so let's then move on to the second step of that process, develop a list of target customers. How would you go about targeting specific customers? Because this is something that I've always felt it's very difficult to do as a fleet salesperson. You know, you face the challenge of the guys have existing brands that they're supporting. They've got existing, relationships with certain salespeople. How do you break through and target specific customers?
Yeah, very, very important question. I think that there's two ways I want to answer this, Fanie. The first is to break into a new customer is always difficult, and this is where the relationship building and communication becomes critical, as well as patience. So it's not that you're going to walk into a fleet customer and suddenly get a deal just because you showed up to a particular meeting. This takes a lot of hard work and nurturing to get buy-in from that customer. But one of the ways that you can do it is if you prepare properly. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do to prepare for that meeting, because you will certainly separate yourself from a lot of other fleet sales executives when you walk into that business and you talk exactly the language that a fleet manager talks and provide them with the information that they're genuinely looking for. So to get those fleet names is of course another challenge. But one of the things that I often use, which is very, very successful and very efficient actually, is I go on the internet and I look for professional associations. So those professional associations, if you go to the Engineering Council of South Africa, or you go to the Master Builders Association, all have lists of their members with contact details. And some of those sites actually give you pretty good information about the company as well. So, you can develop pretty large lists of potential customers that you want to start targeting from a communications point of view, just by looking at professional associations. So that's my first step. Obviously, you want to also log on to some of the tender portals that are available out there, register on them, because then they give you alerts for certain tenders, whether it's private or government sector. If you want to play in the government sector, you need to have registered for RT57. And unfortunately, that only occurs once a year. So around about January, February, you're able to register as an RT57 vendor. But if you don't have that documentation, you won't get any government business. There also are a lot of professionals that, just like we see on retail sales where there's spotters, you get these professional brokers that are very fluent in the documentation that's required for the tenders. And they then are able to put together documentation properly for you, and they go get the deal, and then you pay them a cut of your profit. So these guys actually work pretty well, surprisingly.
Sure. All right. So obviously the third and second point there, OEM leads and referrals, is pretty basic and straightforward. If we move on to the third point there, prepare the point of sale material, and now we're going to the point where we're actually going to go and meet the customers. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it can be either meeting with the customer or sending them some sort of electronic communication. You need to have developed very, very specific type of material that you're going to share with them. And I call it proof points, because when you're sitting down with the fleet, any claims that you make about your vehicles, whether it's performance, whether it's fuel consumption, reliability, any of those things, you've got to have proof points. And so the typical formula for creating your point of sale material, talk to having a general company brochure, then you can drill down into having product specific brochures or information that's part of that. What's very critical for the fleets is for them to know that you understand the legal, safe and safety related information that pertains to their business. So have that in writing, because again, you've got to prove it. If you just verbalize it, it's difficult to prove it. You must definitely have a total cost of ownership comparison at your disposal. And what's very useful, particularly if you're breaking into new fleets, is to have some customer testimonials. Now, you might not have existing fleet customer testimonials, but you can certainly use some of your retail customers to act as a testimonial for you.
Awesome. So before we carry on, I just want to say how's it to everybody joining us live on Facebook. Brendan Carpenter is online, Henny Oosthuizen, Leon Pfeiffer, the guest from last week. How's it, Leon? Jaco Skeepers is online. Gideon Duplessis, Francois van Eden, one of the guys that actually wanted to talk about it, so don't be quiet tonight, Francois. Jaco Reder, we've got, is it Jean-Marie saying, how's it, Peter? So there's a lot of guys. Thank you very much for joining us. And okay, Pete, let's roll on. Let's go to that fourth point, develop the visit schedule. Very important. Obviously, you and I have spoken about this before. A fleet salesperson can't be measured in the same way that a retail salesperson can get measured. Are you agreeing with me or not?
100%. And I think this is one of the failings of a fleet program at any dealership, is that the fleet sales executive is measured in the same way that a retail sales executive will be measured. And the problem with that is that fleet sales typically happen over two main periods, which is either financial year end or from sort of October, November, August, September, October period, where the fleets buy at year end. So anything in between is very quiet. And what we suggest is that any fleet sales executive that's employed should rather be measured during those periods on their activity levels before they're measured on physical sales, because the physical sales are not going to occur that easily. So it's very important that, and obviously the most important measure is how many visits are you performing as a fleet sales executive. So a lot of emphasis in planning should be focused on that. But you've also got to plan your visits very, very carefully, because it doesn't help that you go visit a fleet that's maybe got 3 vehicles in their fleet and you visit them every month versus a fleet that's got 1,000 vehicles and you only go visit them every 2 months. So we suggest using the same fleet policy parameters to develop your visit schedule as well. So it'll tell you how many times you should go visit certain size fleets in a particular period. And what's nice with that is that you can then start to pre-plan ahead and make bookings with those particular fleets for multiple visits well in advance. So they know that you're coming, and it's all pre-planned.
Okay. Researching the customers, the fifth point. How do we go about gathering information? This is obviously a very tender point, because the fleet salesperson needs to speak to the right person and speak to the decision maker, and obviously these guys have been set up so that there's gatekeepers in the way of you getting to them. So how do we go about researching and getting the right information?
Yeah, I think, of course, anything that's worthwhile in life is not easy. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. So this is one of the challenges. But there's ways and means of doing it. I think that we've got such fantastic resources like LinkedIn, where you can really find out exactly who the correct people are in the value chain from a fleet point of view. And it might take you a few attempts to get through to them. But if you've got a proper fleet customer profile sheet that you can then have in front of you when you phone that customer, they actually would appreciate you asking the correct questions, and they will be very willing to give you the information, because then they know that when you come and visit them, you're not going to be just shooting the breeze with them over a cup of coffee, that you're actually going to get down to the proper nuts and bolts of why you're there, and it's going to be over points that are valuable to them. So you've got to ask questions like the nature of the business and the usage of the vehicles, especially the operational usage of the vehicles. And I'll give you an example on that. You might go to a company that is going to tow a trailer with a bit of weight behind it. You go to another company that's going to have the same usage, but they live in KZN, so their operating parameters involve a lot of uphills and downhills. So your fuel consumption and power outputs and all those kind of things become a much more important aspect to them. So understand the nature and the usage for the fleet. Obviously, they're more than happy to share with you the size of their fleet and the share that you perhaps have or don't have in their fleet, as well as their buying cycle. And it's important to know the buying cycle so that you can plan your visits and what to discuss in certain visits, because you don't want to be too transactional in every single visit. There is time for visits to be relationship building and nurturing. And then understand what technical, legal, and safety requirements they have in their particular business, so that you can match that not only with the information that you provide them, but also with the correct specification of vehicles to them. Also understand their servicing demands. A lot of the larger fleets either want you to send out a remote technician to come and perform services on site, or they might even have their own qualified technicians that they just want to buy parts from you and service the vehicles themselves. And a lot of the big fleets do that. And obviously it takes a bit of discussion between you and the OEM as well to make sure that can happen, but it's not uncommon. And then also
Sure.
understand what other value-added products that they might be interested in. And those can be anything from driver training to fuel cards. Once you've got that set of information, you can prepare a monster proposal when you go see them, before you talk even about the vehicles.
Absolutely agree. Listen, we've got a couple of questions that's come in. I've got Francois asked a question about total cost of ownership. I think we're going to get to that, Francois, just a bit later in the show. So we'll definitely get to your answer with regards to calculations and all that sort of stuff. But he's got another question that I think we can take now. Does LinkedIn really work as a source of fleet customers or contacts?
Yeah, and I suppose it's not a perfect science, and you might have some bad experiences, but certainly when we type in fleet manager of a particular company, you'll start to see a lot of names come up where they've either worked at that company as a fleet manager or they're connected to other people at that company. So, it might take you 2 or 3 iterations to get through to the person, but I've certainly found it to be an incredibly useful source. The other thing you must remember with LinkedIn is that if you've set up a proper LinkedIn profile, and perhaps this is a discussion for another day, but if you set up a proper LinkedIn profile and you connect with somebody and you tell them directly why you want to connect with them, the surprising part with LinkedIn is LinkedIn members are quite loyal to other LinkedIn members who are professionally seeking out business. And so you'd be surprised if you start linking up with all these contacts at how many doors they open. And again, even if they're not the right person, you can ask them to, who the right person is.
Absolutely. Let's move on, Peter. So we've got a process now, some sort of process in place that we need to follow. But I think something that's important and something that I use when we do marketing and working on a marketing plan or strategies, we start from the customer's point of view and work our way back. And I think it's important that we do the same here when talking and thinking about fleets. So let's ask the questions and you've got the answers. What do fleets want?
Yeah, I think the first thing that's on their tongues generally is cost of ownership. So they look at 2 aspects of cost of ownership. One is a balance sheet function, which is the holding cost, and then they look at the total cost of ownership or cost per kilometer, which is an income statement type of entry. So they're going to look at that. They're going to look at the reliability of both the product and the service provider. And this is where your testimonials become quite critical when you go see them. They look at the correct vehicle for the application. And I promise you, if you suggest a vehicle to a fleet and it's the incorrect vehicle for that application, you can end up in a lot of trouble and a lot of heartache in terms of having to take back vehicles or compensate that customer for providing them a vehicle that's not working. They're certainly looking for the correct technical and legal information. And one might think that this is only applicable to commercial vehicles and the heavy commercial vehicles, but actually rolls right back to even light commercial vehicles and passenger cars. If you take the OSH Act, for example, one of the things that it tells you is that your staff in their vehicles have to have the same levels of safety and comfort that their counterparts in the office would have. And so you've often got to talk to the customer and ask them, what are the conditions that their staff in the office work under? And you've got to be able to match that in a vehicle. But things like driver's licenses and how much weight that can tow on the vehicle and all these kind of things are critical that you understand when you're talking to your customer. So the health and safety factors we've looked at. Support factors. We've spoken about the potential location of where services can occur, whether they can do their own service. Very, very important is what is your breakdown assistance? If they have a repair issue or a breakdown issue, you've got to be very, very careful when you're dealing with customers that use their vehicles to generate an income. Because again, and this is also a positive, where if you can show reliability and efficiency in the vehicles, if they earn a certain amount of money per day out of that vehicle, when that vehicle breaks down, if you've provided them with a proper backup service, courtesy vehicles or
Yes.
a standby technician or anything like that, that's going to count a lot towards them making a decision. Obviously, driver factors. Again, don't only talk to the fleet manager. If you can, try set up a driver day. Take them to the track or wherever and really treat the drivers, because they're actually the ones that are going to make or break your product. If they like your product, they're going to tell the fleet manager this is the greatest product since sliced bread. If they don't like it, they're going to bury you.
Yes.
And they will break the product.
It's a very good point. It's a very, very good point.
So look after those drivers.
Right.
Make sure they're comfortable and there's acceptance. Fleets want relationships. They don't want one-hit wonders. And so be prepared. And this is why I say, if the dealerships are prepared to invest the time and money it takes to develop these relationships, then the results will be there for them to see. Because if you develop a proper relationship with those fleet managers, they will be loyal back to you. And then, of course, and we've touched on this already, is the value-added products that you can bundle with the sale of the vehicle. So driver training, eco-defensive driver training, risk mitigation. And another one that becomes very important is the remarketing of the vehicles once they've reached the end of their life cycle. So although a lot of fleet deals are done on a buyback basis, a surprising amount are done where there's no buyback process. And you might be able to put in as part of your package that you will take those vehicles back and sell them off your floor on behalf of the customer, and take that problem off their hands.
Okay, let's talk about the fleet manager for a bit. I think, just like we've said now, we need to understand what the fleet actually wants from us and what we can help them with. But if we look at the fleet manager as an individual and understanding his role, that would obviously also make a huge impact on the fact that, or on the way that we can approach him or her, and try and build that relationship, understanding what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's very important. And it's actually quite surprising if you have a look at the role of a fleet manager. Sitting here, we would sort of think that a fleet manager has the life, because all he's doing is, or she's doing, is purchasing a vehicle. But actually, there's a lot more to a fleet manager than meets the eye, and it's quite a complex position. So there's two main roles that a fleet manager performs. The first is they are an asset manager, and the second is enterprise management. A fleet manager is not only looking at the daily running of the vehicles and the servicing and the fuel cards and how staff are reimbursed for usage for fuel, for example, and all those kind of things from an asset management point of view. I mean, if the vehicle has an accident, they've got to sort it out. They've got to sort out the vehicle for servicing and maintenance and all those kind of things. So from an asset management point of view, believe you me, the fleet managers are very, very busy people. From an enterprise management point of view, they've got to balance a whole lot of stakeholders. So, for example, they're not only looking at their staff, but they're also looking at their customers, because the vehicles that they're using also represent a branding opportunity for them as well. So they're very careful about making sure that their drivers are certified, that there's proper reporting back in terms of the effectiveness of these vehicles, having a look, obviously, at purchasing the vehicle and sourcing those vehicles at financially prudent prices, budgeting, contract management, all those kind of things. So there's a surprising amount that a fleet manager has to do. Now, if you understand what the fleet manager goes through, you can start to add a lot of value to that fleet manager, even if it's not part of your business.
Absolutely.
So again, we speak about being a linchpin, putting people in touch with the right people that will assist them, or a product that will assist them, or even anecdotal evidence of how other fleets are approaching a particular problem that might solve their problem. If you can do that, it really starts adding up in terms of your relationship that you're building with that fleet manager. And critically, I hope it makes you understand that the fleet manager's time that they give up for you is indeed very precious. And that is why your planning of your meetings and the information that you share in those meetings becomes so critical.
Absolutely. I've got a question here from Francois van Eden. He says, on the resale values, what are fleet owners' expectations percentage-wise, let's say at about 100,000 kilometers?
Okay, so I think what we're going to deal with that, I've actually got a spreadsheet at the end, Francois, that we're going to share with you. The expectations vary, and I think it's better to maybe go to that sheet to explain it, because it's not about the resale
Okay, but
value
let's get to it then. Yeah, let's get to it then, Francois. At the end, I think it's the second last or the last slide that we're going to do tonight. So, Francois, we'll definitely get to that. But before we carry on, Pete, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun, Pete. Are you ready?
Well,
because you and Lekker went last week when you...
I think my internet connection's breaking up now.
Is it? Okay, so guys, you guys are online, and Peter, there in your office, we're going to guess the car. So I'm going to give you a little tip. It's late 50s and 60s vehicles, and very iconic vehicles again. So I'm not going to try and give you something that you've never seen before. I promise you've seen all of these cars and looked at them pretty nicely. So guys, all of you online, I want to see your answers, and I want to see at the end how many. I think we've got 6, Fritz. I think there's 6. So give me your answer. How many you got right out of 6? So let's get going. First car, Peter.
That's
what is
Mercedes
this?
Gullwing. That's the Mercedes Gullwing.
Oh my, that is unbelievable. Well done.
Yeah.
But you've got some Merc background. You've got some Merc background. So obviously that's why. You got that one right. Okay, what's the next one? Here's the next one, Pete.
What
do you think that is?
Jag, I'd say. E-Type Jag.
Ew. Well done, Pete. Well done. 1961 Jaguar E-Type. Well done. Let's go to the next one, Fritz.
Oh, that's an Aston Martin.
If I'm not mistaken.
I would say DB5, I would say.
Let's see if done, Pete. So I thought you're not a car guy. Okay, let's see the next one, Fritz. This one's gonna get you.
That looks American. I would say.
You're right.
I would say that is probably a Dodge.
Let's see.
Camaro.
It's the Chevy Camaro. Well done, Brendan and Francois. You guys are on that. Alfred Ryder's got the DB5 as well. Brendan got it right. Well done, Brendan. Okay, let's have the next one, Fritz. What's this?
That is a pony. That is a Ford Mustang.
Well done. Alfred Ryder beat you to that one. Before you even got to say what it was, he got it right. Well done.
No, he's got a strong internet signal.
What's this last one here?
AC Cobra.
Oh, that was too easy. Too easy. Okay, is there one more to go? Oh, so you had 5, eh? Is that right?
Yeah, I think I got 5 out of 6.
Well done. That's not too bad. You guys at home, let me see what your scores were like today. Francois van Eden got it right on the pony. Brendan's got Mustang. Francois got the Cobra. So I think Francois probably got all of them right. Post your scores, guys. Let me see. All right. Let's get down to calculations, because when we talk fleet, we're talking rands and cents, and what it all comes down to. So you've got a couple of calculations that you're going to share with us. The first one is calculating replacement benefits. So let's go to slide number 5 there, please, Fritz.
All right. So this is typically what you're going to face when you first get to a fleet and you're trying to convince them to purchase your product. And I think this is going to become particularly valid now post-corona, where everybody's budgets are critical. So a lot of fleets are going to try and hang on to their vehicles. And if we have a look at the red graphs, that's the current expenditure that they will be spending on their vehicles, just purely from a cost point of view in terms of holding those vehicles. And the blue represents what it would cost them if they had to replenish their fleet. Now, based on that, you're probably not going to get a deal. So what you've got to be able to do then is, if we have a look at slide 2, is we look at what it's going to cost them to now maintain that same fleet of vehicles. So if they keep their existing fleet of vehicles, it's a fact of life that the product, even with regular service and maintenance, fleet vehicles are generally driven hard. And so we start to see a significant increase in the cost of maintaining those vehicles, which is represented in the red. But if they had to replenish their fleet with new vehicles, and particularly vehicles that come with standard maintenance plans and service plans, then the preferable, in other words, the fleet that you're suggesting that they purchase, those costs are significantly lower. And now what we do is, if we take those two graphs and combine those costs, you'll see that the fleet will actually be better off purchasing and renewing their fleet rather than holding on to their fleet. Now, the magic point here really is to determine what is the right time for that fleet to replenish their sales, to replenish their fleet. And that is a spreadsheet that I'll share with you at the end, where you can actually sit down with the fleet manager, punch in their variables, and it'll give them a scientific view on what is the ultimate point or the break-even point when they should consider replacing their fleet in order to manage costs.
Okay, so the next slide is something that I wish I knew you back in the days when I did fleet sales, so that I could have this information. So if we bring up slide number 8, this is the total cost of ownership and operating cost calculator.
Yes, so it's a simple spreadsheet once again, and I'm prepared to share it with everybody who wants it. So they just need to email me for this. And I think at the same time I'm going to tackle Francois' question about what do fleets expect in terms of resale value. So there's a couple of buzzwords. There's a couple of buzzwords for fleets. The number one buzzword is holding cost. Now, that holding cost is a function of the original retail price that they pay, less the resale value of the vehicle, the predicted resale value of the vehicle, then divided over the period that they have the vehicle plus interest. So that determines the holding cost. Now, if we take the sheet, and I don't know if you can see my mouse on the top here, but if you can't, we can just go line by line. If you had to walk in, and I'll just use a couple of vehicles as an example. If you had to walk into a fleet and you speak price and discount, the chances are good you're going to not get the deal. So the chances are good you're not going to get the deal if you talk price and discount. And the reason for that is that you might be the most expensive out of all of your competitors. And so if that's your discussion point with your fleet manager, well, you're out of the discussion already. Okay. So there's a whole lot of other variables that you've got to consider. But we'll come back to price, and we're going to come back to how you can manipulate discounts in order to ultimately get the deal. Now, to answer Francois' question in terms of resale value and what their expectations are, we've got to balance our price, our discount, and our predicted resale value so that it comes up with an optimal holding cost. Now, to illustrate that, what we've built into the spreadsheet is an ability to predict what the resale value is going to be both for your product and for your competitor's product. And where I've highlighted it in red over here, where it says medium, excellent, medium, poor, you have the ability, it's a little drop down function. So you click on that and you've got the choice between excellent, medium, and poor. And you decide, based on your own experience with trading of those vehicles, whether it's an excellent trader or a medium trader or a poor trader. And that then automatically will then recalculate your holding cost if you change these parameters over here. All right. So then other things that you've got to look at is usage. Now, Francois, for you can put in 100,000 kilometers there. In this example, we've got 160,000. It makes no difference. But then you'll see how it affects the holding cost over here. We look at insurance. Now, this is an area where if you are finding yourself on the more expensive side of things, if you can package a very robust insurance cost for them, you can start to dramatically reduce the total cost of ownership and the cost per kilometer for the vehicle. Critical is to put in the fuel consumption and then the actual price of the fuel that they're going to be using. You look at total maintenance costs plus extensions. You put in the interest rate, because even though some of the fleets might purchase the vehicles cash, they still look at it as a lost opportunity. So you've got to put in the interest rate, your tire usage, and also the cost of tires. And this is another area where you can start making a difference in terms of building a deal, is if you can get in partnership with the tire supply company and put together a package for that fleet that they get tires at a discounted rate. And then your on-the-road charges. Now, if we go down to the bottom, what that does for us is that once we've put in all those parameters, it pumps out then a monthly operating cost for each of the vehicles, an operating cost per kilometer, a total cost of ownership per unit, and then a total cost of ownership per kilometer. And you can then make your comparisons with your competitors by putting in how many units you're typically looking at, or the fleet is typically looking at purchasing from you, and it'll tell you what your total value advantage is over the others. So just as a bad example, in this case, the Nissan on 10 vehicles would be 225,000 Rand better off than, for example, a Fiat. I'm not saying that's the case. This is just an example.
Sure, just an example, yeah.
Whereas the VW would cost the fleet 34,000 Rand more. Now, if you find, for example, let's say you in the Fiat category and you're quite out in terms of your competitors, what this sheet allows you to do is to go back and have a look at some of the critical things like your discount, for example, that you might have to tweak. Or you go back to the OEM and you negotiate a stronger buyback option. So they give you an additional percentage or two up front so that you can make a provision for a stronger buyback. Or you can subsidize that resale value if in your case it's poor. So it really is a magic sheet in terms of being able to properly structure a deal for the fleet. And then once it's completed and you're in a more favorable position, you really only show the fleet the bottom half of that sheet. So don't show them the top half, which looks at pricing. You show them the bottom half, which is actually what they're looking at in any case. And then you're in a much stronger position to negotiate a deal. I don't know if that answers your question, Francois.
I'm pretty sure it does. Francois, just I see that he's commented here and he's asked us to send on the sheets, which we will definitely do. Francois, if you have any other questions, please pop it into the questions and we will definitely get to it. You done with that sheet there and the explanation, Pete? Can we move on to the last one?
Yes.
Okay, so the annual life cycle cost. Yes, let's move on.
All right, so this bottom sheet over here, and again, I'll share with anybody that wants it. What you do here is, while you're sitting with your fleet, prospective fleet that you want to sell to and the fleet manager, you can populate all the sections here that you need to. So you can stick in a suggested interest rate, inflation rate, depreciation of vehicles over the first year and second year onwards, etc. You put in the vehicle cost, and you put in the estimated maintenance costs for each year, and the estimated operating costs, like fuel, insurance, tires, all those good things. Okay. And remember, if you've done a proper job of work, and you have been able to give your customer a price advantage of that, already, you're in a strong position. What this sheet does then is it expands that data, and it then pops out. You can see the yellow X in this case, and again, it's just an example, so it's not scientific. But that yellow X tells you what is the optimal position for the fleet manager to replenish his fleet, so that he starts saving money rather than spending additional money on maintenance costs and the like. Now, you can take that sheet and you can populate it for any number of different types of vehicle that they have. So it doesn't even need to be your own product. But you can certainly show them then when they should look at replenishing their fleet. And if they replenish their fleet, then they, obviously you're going to try and sell them into the product that you're selling.
Yes. Awesome.
Now, this is...
Listen, so...
Yeah,
carry on.
No, I was going to say, if we go back to the fleet process, one of the things I spoke about was using scientific tools. Because again, you've got to prove what you are claiming, and the best way to do it is to use scientific tools that really nobody can argue against. You'll find very few objections are raised when the data that is being put in is that fleet customers' own data, and then they see for themselves what the correct break-even point will be, etc., etc.
Yes. Bottom line is then ultimately it comes down to the relationship and if the guy actually likes you or not.
Yeah, I mean, and isn't that the truth for anything that we're doing in a sales environment, eh?
Correct. Listen, Peter, thank you so much for all of the value that you brought tonight. It was unbelievable. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I wish I had known you 10 years ago when I started out in fleet. It would have helped me a lot. I'm just going to say again, guys, both the sheets that we spoke about will be available via Peter. So you can either drop your email address in the comments below, or Peter, what's your email address? Then the guys can actually get into contact with you.
All right, so it's very simple. It's peter@SydSen.com.
Peter@SydSen.com. That's it.
Yeah, English Peter.
Okay, guys. Yeah. not the Afrikaans Peter, eh?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your time.
That's a great pleasure, and I hope everybody took some value out of it. And again, I'm just encourage you to get hold of me. I'm more than happy to assist.
And from my side, thank you very much for joining us, guys. It was an unbelievable session on fleet. I really enjoyed the information that you shared with us, Peter. And we'll see you guys back here next week, Thursday. I hopefully got a nice surprise for you. So please stay tuned, and I'm sure that we'll be able to send some valuable information your way next week, Thursday at 6 o'clock. See you guys then. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.